Rain slicked his black hair, ran in slow lines down the sharp edge of his jaw. His hands stayed buried in his coat pockets, unhurried, controlled. Everything about him spoke of power. Money. Men who didn't ask permission. Then he spoke. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you." The words were low. Rough. Stripped bare in a way that made my chest ache. They weren't meant for me. They were meant for her. I froze, breath locked in my lungs, my palm still pressed to the headstone. His shadow stretched over the marble, over my mother's name, over my trembling fingers. The rain came down harder. Neither of us moved. "Who are you?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He just stood there, rain soaking his shoulders, staring at my mother's name like it was a wound he couldn't close. Like seeing it hurt him. I knew that look. And suddenly, I knew something else too. This man didn't come here by accident. Before we continue, please like and subscribe. You can also share your experience in the comments if you've had quite a similar experience. Chapter 1. The flowers were dying in my hand. White lilies, $3 from the gas station on Route 9 because that's all I could afford this week. The cellophane crackled as I gripped them tighter, rain starting to fall in cold drops that hit my jacket and soaked through immediately. October in Boston meant weather that changed its mind without warning. Sunny one moment, downpour the next. I hadn't been here in 2 months. Guilt sat heavy in my chest about that. But grief costs money. Gas. Time off work I couldn't afford when every shift at the diner meant the difference between making rent and getting evicted. The cemetery was 40 minutes outside the city, and my 15-year-old Honda barely made it here on fumes. I'd have to skip lunch tomorrow to afford the gas for the drive back. Worth it, though. Always worth it. My mother's grave sat under an oak tree, the headstone simple because simple was all I could afford. Grey marble with her name carved in letters that were already collecting dirt in the grooves. Eleanor Chen, beloved mother 1964 to 2024. 6 months. She'd been gone 6 months, and the hole in my chest hadn't gotten any smaller. I knelt in the wet grass, not caring that the cold seeped through my jeans immediately, not caring that my knees would be mud-stained for my evening shift. Set the lilies against the stone with shaking hands. "I'm sorry I didn't come sooner," I whispered. "Work has been crazy. Tips have been terrible. I picked up extra shifts at the hospital cafeteria, but it's still not enough." The words felt hollow. Everything felt hollow since she died. I traced her name with my fingertips, feeling the grooves in the marble. "I miss you. Every single day. The apartment is too quiet without you. I burned the stir-fry you taught me to make. Can't sleep in your room yet. Still smells like your perfume." My throat closed up. Tears mixed with rain on my face. That's when I heard them. Footsteps. Multiple. Heavy and deliberate on the wet grass. I looked up sharply, alarm spiking through my grief. 6 men in black suits stood 30 feet back, arranged in a perfect semicircle like sentries. Perfectly still. Rain rolling off expensive fabric that probably cost more than I made in a month. Faces impassive, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses despite the overcast sky. They weren't moving. Just watching. Watching me. My heart slammed against my ribs. This wasn't normal. People didn't travel in groups of 6 wearing matching suits to visit graves. This was something else. Something dangerous. I started to stand, to run, to do something. Then another sound. Closer. Footsteps approaching from my left. A 7th man walked past the others, through them, his presence cutting the air like a blade. Tall, well over 6 feet, broad-shouldered, dark coat that hung on him like armor. His face was all sharp angles and controlled grief, jaw tight and clean-shaven, eyes dark and unreadable, cheekbones that could cut glass. He moved with absolute certainty, like he owned the ground beneath his feet. And maybe he did. He didn't look at me. Didn't acknowledge my existence. He walked straight to my mother's grave like he had every right to be there. Stopped beside it, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something expensive. Cedar and leather. And lowered his head. Rain darkened his black hair, dripped from his jaw. His hands were in his coat pockets. Everything about him screamed control, power, money. Then he spoke. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you." His voice was quiet. Raw. Broken in a way that made my chest tighten. The words were meant for her, not me. I froze, breath caught in my lungs. My hands were still on the headstone. His shadow fell across the marble, across my mother's name, across my cold fingers. The rain fell harder. Neither of us moved. Who are you? I finally managed, voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer immediately. Just stood there, rain darkening his shoulders, staring at my mother's name carved in stone like it caused him physical pain. Like seeing it ripped something open inside him. I knew that look. I saw it in the mirror every day. Then his eyes lifted. Slowly, deliberately, and locked onto mine. Recognition flashed across his face. Sharp and immediate. Not surprised that I was there. Knowledge. Like he'd known exactly who I was before he ever walked up. You're her daughter, he said. Statement, not question. Absolute certainty. How do you? My voice cracked. How do you know that? You have her eyes. His gaze didn't waver. Intense enough to pin me in place. And her stubbornness. You're still here even though you're terrified. I was terrified. My hands were shaking. But I refused to look away. Who are you? How did you know my mother? You shouldn't be here alone. His gaze swept the cemetery, sharp and assessing, taking in every sight line, every potential threat. It's not safe. You're here alone, I shot back, even though it was a lie. He had 6 men with him. Why is it safe for you but not for me? His jaw tightened. I'm not alone. And I'm not safe. I'm just prepared. Prepared for what? Threats you don't want to understand. The rain was soaking through my jacket now, dripping from my hair into my eyes. I was freezing, shaking, confused, and angry. You don't get to show up at my mother's grave, say cryptic shit, and then refuse to answer questions, I said, anger burning through the fear. Who the hell are you? What did you mean about saving her? She died in a car accident. Did she? His voice was soft. Dangerous. Is that what you really believe? My blood went cold. What are you saying? He looked at me for a long moment. Something moved behind his eyes. Calculation, concern, maybe regret. Then he took a step back. Go home, Miss Chen. Lock your doors. Don't come back here alone. Tell me your name. He paused. Seemed to debate with himself. The rain pounded down. His men shifted positions slightly, tightening their formation. Then, quietly, like a confession, Matteo De Luca. The name meant nothing to me. But the way he said it, like it should mean something, like it was a weight he carried, made my skin prickle. That's not an answer, I said. That's just a name. It's all you need to know. He turned to leave. Wait. I scrambled to my feet, legs stiff from kneeling. You can't just say that and walk away. You can't imply my mother was murdered and then. He spun back faster than I expected, closing the distance between us in 2 strides. Suddenly he was there, towering over me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Close enough to see the gold flecks in dark irises. Close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body despite the cold rain. Listen very carefully, he said, voice low and controlled. Your mother saw something she wasn't supposed to see. That got her killed. And if the wrong people realize you're looking into it, they'll kill you too. My heart was racing. Then tell me what she saw. Tell me what happened. No. Why not? Because knowledge is dangerous. And I've already failed to protect one woman I cared about. His hand came up, hovering near my face but not quite touching. I won't fail again. Then he stepped back, turned, and walked away. Wait. But he was already moving, his men falling into formation around him like a well-oiled machine. They disappeared between the headstones. A moment later, I heard car engines start. Expensive engines, the kind that purred rather than rattled. I stood there alone in the rain, staring at my mother's grave, trying to process what just happened. Your mother saw something she wasn't supposed to see. That got her killed. The police said car accident. Lost control on a wet road. Tragic but not suspicious. But Matteo De Luca said murder. And the certainty in his voice made me believe him. I looked down at my mother's headstone, rain running off the marble in rivulets. "What did you see, Mom?" I whispered. "What got you killed?" The wind rustled through the oak trees. And for the first time since her death, I wondered if I'd been grieving the wrong way. If I should have been looking for answers instead of acceptance. I drove home in a daze, rain hammering the windshield, Matteo De Luca's words echoing in my head. My apartment was cold and dark when I got there. Third floor walk-up in a building that should have been condemned 20 years ago. Radiator that barely worked, windows that let in drafts, neighbors who fought loudly at 2 a.m. But it was mine. Or it had been ours, before Mom died. Now it was just mine. I peeled off my wet clothes, stood under a lukewarm shower until I stopped shaking, then wrapped myself in my mother's bathrobe, the one I couldn't bring myself to throw away even though it was threadbare and faded. My phone buzzed. Text from the diner. "Can you cover tomorrow morning?" Jen called in sick. I stared at the screen. I was already working a double tomorrow. Adding a morning shift meant 18 hours straight. But I needed the money. Yes. Another text came through immediately. "You're a lifesaver. See you at 5 a.m. I set my phone down and looked around the apartment. Mom's knitting sat in a basket by the couch, needles stuck through half-finished scarf. Her reading glasses on the side table. Her slippers by the door. I hadn't touched any of it. Couldn't. Removing her things would make it real. Make it final. I curled up on the couch with a cup of tea I didn't drink and pulled out my laptop. Typed Matteo De Luca Boston into Google. The results made my blood run cold. Matteo De Luca, Boston businessman and alleged organized crime figure. De Luca family connections to Italian mafia. Federal investigation into De Luca Enterprises. My hands were shaking. The man at my mother's grave, the man who spoke about failing to save her, was Mob. And he'd been visiting her grave every week for 6 months. Chapter 2. I couldn't stop thinking about him. 3 days passed. 3 days of serving tables at the diner, pouring coffee with a smile I didn't feel, taking orders from people who didn't tip, coming home to my one-bedroom apartment that smelled like mold and old takeout. 3 days of lying awake at night, replaying that moment in the cemetery. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you." What did that mean? My mother died in a car accident. Police report said single vehicle crash on a rainy night, lost control on a curve near the Quincy border. The officer who came to my door, young, uncomfortable, clearly hating this part of his job, said it was instant. That she didn't suffer. That sometimes these things just happened. But Matteo De Luca spoke like he'd been there. Like he'd watched her die. Like he'd failed her personally. I'd read everything I could find about him online. Articles about his alleged connections to organized crime. Federal investigations that went nowhere. Legitimate businesses, restaurants, real estate, import companies, that everyone knew were fronts for something darker. Photos of him at charity events wearing expensive suits and emotionless expressions. The man was dangerous, connected, powerful, and he'd been visiting my mother's grave every Thursday for 6 months. On the 4th day, Thursday morning, dawn breaking grey and cold, I went back to the cemetery. I called in sick to the diner, losing money I couldn't afford to lose. But I needed answers more than I needed tips. Drove the 40 minutes on an empty gas tank and a prayer, pulled into the cemetery just as the sun was starting to rise. The grounds were empty. Mist hung low over the graves, turning everything ghostly and surreal. I brought fresh flowers, daisies this time, cheaper than lilies but still pretty. Mom always liked daisies. Said they were cheerful, that they meant hope. I didn't expect to see him. But he was there. Same dark coat, perfectly tailored, probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. Same controlled posture, shoulders back, spine straight. Standing at my mother's grave with his head bowed like he was praying or confessing or both. White roses lay against the headstone. Expensive ones, long-stemmed, probably ordered from some fancy florist. They made my $3 daisies look pathetic. I approached slowly, leaves crunching under my sneakers. He didn't turn around. Didn't react at all. But I knew he'd heard me. Everything about his stillness screamed awareness. "You come here often?" I asked, keeping my voice light despite my racing heart. "Every Thursday." His voice was different in daylight. Still controlled, but softer somehow. Less sharp edges. For 6 months now. 6 months. Since she died. The confirmation hit me harder than it should have. That's dedication. It's guilt. The honesty surprised me. I moved to stand beside him, set my cheap daisies next to his expensive roses. The contrast was almost funny. Almost. You're going to tell me how you knew her, I said. Not a question. And you're going to tell me the truth this time. Matteo's eyes stayed on the headstone. On my mother's name carved in grey marble. She worked for me. Cleaning service, twice a week. Tuesdays and Fridays, 9 to 3. His voice was flat, reciting facts. She was kind. Asked about my day. Brought me homemade soup when I had the flu last winter. Told me about her daughter who was working 2 jobs to make ends meet. My throat tightened. Mom had mentioned cleaning houses, but she'd never said whose. Never mentioned names or addresses. Just work that paid cash under the table. She talked about you constantly, he continued. How proud she was. How hard you worked. How you deserved better than the hand life dealt you. Something cracked in my chest. She never mentioned you, I said quietly. Never told me about any of her clients. I asked her not to. My life. He stopped. Jaw tightening. It's complicated. Complicated how? The kind that gets people hurt. The morning air was cold. My breath came out in clouds. Did you get my mother hurt? I asked. The question I'd been avoiding for 3 days. His jaw clenched. The silence stretched. Then, yes. The single word hit like a punch. Tell me, I demanded. Tell me what happened. The truth. The truth will put you in danger. I'm already in danger, aren't I? You said so yourself. They're watching me, whoever killed her. They're not watching you anymore. I made sure of that. How? He finally looked at me, and the weight in his eyes, grief and guilt and something darker, made my breath catch. By making it very clear what would happen if they touched you. The threat hung in the air between us. What did my mother see? I pressed. You said she saw something she wasn't supposed to see. What was it? Matteo was quiet for a long moment, weighing his words. The mist was starting to lift. Early morning sun filtered through the oak trees, casting long shadows across the graves. There was a meeting at my house, he said finally. Business deal going wrong. Money that disappeared. Accusations being thrown. It got heated. Violent. He paused. Your mother walked in at exactly the wrong moment. My stomach dropped. She witnessed something illegal. She witnessed a murder. The ground seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Who? My voice came out as a whisper. Who did she see killed? Alexander Volkov. Russian mob, connected to the Bratva. He was stealing from my organization. Needed to be dealt with. His eyes never left mine. Your mother saw his body. Saw the blood. Saw the men responsible. And they killed her for it. They tried to use her as leverage against me. Told me to back off or they'd hurt her. His hands curled into fists at his sides. I tried to get her out. Offered to relocate her, give her money, set her up somewhere safe. She refused. Why would she refuse? Because of you. His voice cracked slightly. She said she couldn't leave Boston because you were here. Your job, your life. She wouldn't abandon you. Tears burned my eyes. That sounded exactly like Mom. Stubborn. Loyal. Putting me first even when it cost her everything. So they killed her, I whispered. They tried to kidnap her. Use her to control me. It went wrong. She fought. Tried to escape. They chased her. She was terrified, driving too fast, lost control on that curve. He stopped, breath shuddering. By the time I found out what happened, she was already gone. And the police believe it was an accident. Because that's what they were told to believe. The implications hit me. Corruption. Cover-ups. Money exchanging hands to bury the truth. You own the cops, I said flatly. Some of them. Enough. No apology in his voice. It was cleaner that way. No investigation. No questions. No trail leading back to you. To protect me. Yes. I stared at my mother's grave, trying to process everything. She'd witnessed a murder. Been killed to keep her quiet. And this man, this dangerous, powerful man, had spent 6 months visiting her grave, carrying guilt like stones. What happened to them? I asked quietly. The men who killed her. Matteo's expression went cold. Dead. They're not a problem anymore. Which meant he'd killed them. I should have been horrified. Should have run. Called the police, though apparently that wouldn't help since he owned them. But all I felt was grim satisfaction. Good, I said. He looked surprised. Good? They killed my mother. I'm glad they're dead. Something shifted in his eyes. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition. The rain started again. Light drizzle that made the gravestones gleam. His men appeared from nowhere, umbrellas opening, forming a protective circle around us. But Matteo didn't step back. Didn't put distance between us. You need to leave Boston, he said. Tonight. I can arrange transport, money, a new identity if necessary. I'm not going anywhere. I stepped closer, anger flaring hot and reckless. You don't get to show up, tell me my mother was murdered, and then order me around like I'm your responsibility. You are my responsibility. Why? Because you feel guilty. Because she made me promise. His hand shot out, caught my wrist. Not painful, but immovable. The last thing she said before she ran was promise me you'll keep Lily safe. I failed her then. I won't fail her again. The certainty in his voice made me cold. A phone buzzed. One of his men stepped forward, whispered something urgent in Italian. Matteo's expression darkened. We are leaving, he said, grip tightening on my wrist. Now. Let go of me. They know you're here. His eyes locked onto mine. Fierce, urgent. And they're coming. Who's coming? The Bratva. The men who want revenge for Alexander's death. He was already pulling me toward his car. And if they get their hands on you, everything I've done to protect you was for nothing. Chapter 3. The SUV was black, spotless, the kind that screamed money and danger. Matteo pushed me into the back seat, sliding in beside me. His men moved with practiced efficiency, doors slamming, engine roaring to life, tires spitting gravel as we tore out of the cemetery. Who's coming? I demanded. What's happening? The Volkov Bratva. Russian organized crime. His voice was clipped, professional. They've been watching you. My stomach dropped. Why would they? Because they know you matter to me. The admission hung in the air between us. I stared at him. I don't even know you. They don't care. We drove fast through back roads, the cityscape blurring past. I should have been terrified. Should have been screaming, demanding to be let out. But Matteo's presence beside me was so absolutely certain, so controlled, that my fear transmuted into something else. Something I didn't want to name. Where are you taking me? Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to a building in the financial district. Glass and steel, doorman, the kind of place where people like me didn't exist. Matteo's hand found the small of my back as we entered, guiding me through a lobby that screamed wealth. No one questioned us. No one even looked at us. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Modern furniture that probably cost more than my entire life. Art on the walls that had to be original. I turned on him. You can't just kidnap me. I didn't kidnap you. I saved you. You trapped me. Yes. No apology in his voice. Until the threat is eliminated, you stay here. That's insane. That's reality. He shrugged off his coat, and I caught a glimpse of the shoulder holster underneath. Gun, worn like a second skin. There are guards on every floor. Don't try to leave. This is illegal. So is murder. His eyes met mine. Which is what will happen if you go back to your apartment. The certainty in his voice made me cold. How long? As long as it takes. He started to walk away. Matteo. He stopped. Why do you care? I asked quietly. If my mother was just your cleaning woman, why does this matter so much? He was silent for a long moment. Then, because the last thing she said before she died was promise me you'll keep Lily safe. And I failed her once. I won't fail her again. The door closed behind him. And I was alone in a gilded cage. Chapter 4. Days blurred together. I had my own room, massive, decorated in greys and whites, a bed I could get lost in, bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in, closet stocked with clothes in exactly my size. That part disturbed me most. How did he know? Meals appeared 3 times a day. Breakfast at 7. Lunch at noon. Dinner at 6. Always covered, still hot, arranged on the dining table like I was staying at a hotel. I never saw who brought them. Matteo came every evening around 8. He'd pour himself a drink, whiskey, neat, and ask how I was doing. Professional. Distant. Like I was a responsibility, not a person. On the 3rd night, I confronted him. I have a job, I said. Bills. A life. Your rent is paid through next year. Your boss was told you had a family emergency. He didn't look up from his phone. You're covered. You can't just arrange my life. I can. I did. The casual authority in his voice should have enraged me. Instead, it did something worse. It made me aware of him. The way he filled space. The controlled power in every movement. The way his jaw tightened when he was thinking. How long are you going to keep me here? I asked. As long as necessary. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. I stood, walked to the windows. The city sprawled below, lights glittering like promises. You're not a good man, are you? Silence. Then his voice, closer than expected. No. I turned. He'd moved behind me without sound. What are you? Necessary. His eyes held mine. In my world, good men die quickly. I've survived by being something else. What did my mother see? His jaw tightened. A deal going wrong. Money exchanging hands. Violence. And they killed her for it. They tried to use her as leverage against me. It went wrong. His voice dropped. I wasn't fast enough. Do you always talk about murder like it's weather? In my world, it is. I should have been afraid. But standing this close to him, I felt something entirely different. Why does it matter? I whispered. Why do I matter? His hand came up, fingers brushing my cheek. The touch was gentle, at odds with everything else about him. Because she loved you more than anything. And keeping you safe is the only redemption I have left. His thumb traced my jaw. I should have pulled away. Didn't. This is dangerous, I breathed. Everything about me is dangerous. I should hate you. You should. But when he leaned down, when his lips brushed against mine, testing, asking permission without words, I didn't push him away. I pulled him closer. The kiss was controlled at first. Then something broke. His hands cupped my face, angling me exactly where he wanted, and I tasted whiskey and desperation and something darker. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. This can't happen, he said. I know. You're under my protection. I know. If I touch you again, I won't stop. My heart hammered. I know. He stepped back, putting distance between us. Get some sleep, Lily. And he left. But that night, I woke at 3 a.m. to find him standing in my doorway. Just watching. Making sure I was safe. Making sure I was his. Chapter 5. The file was an accident. I'd been looking for paper to write a grocery list, things I needed if I was trapped here indefinitely, when I found the folder tucked in a desk drawer. My name on the tab. Inside, photos. Me leaving the diner. Me at the grocery store. Me at the cemetery. Dates going back 8 months. Before my mother died. My hand shook as I flipped through surveillance reports, detailed notes about my schedule, my habits, my life. Matteo hadn't just been watching me recently. He'd been watching me for months. The door opened. I spun around, folder clutched in my hands. Matteo stood in the doorway, still in his suit from whatever business he'd been conducting. His eyes went to the folder, then to my face. "You were watching me," I said, voice shaking. "Before she died. You were already watching me." He didn't deny it. "Why?" "Because I knew they were watching her. Which meant they might use you." "So you what? Decided to use me first?" "I decided to keep you alive." I threw the folder at him. Papers scattered. "By stalking me? By invading my privacy?" "Yes." The casual admission broke something in me. "Get out. Lily. Get out." I screamed it. "You're just like them. Just another man who thinks he can control me, manipulate me, use me." He crossed the room in 3 strides, caught my wrists. "I'm nothing like them." "You're exactly like them. You just tell yourself pretty stories about protection." His grip tightened. "Those men wanted to hurt you. I wanted to save you." "By taking away my choice? By keeping me prisoner? By keeping you breathing?" We were chest to chest now, both of us breathing hard. "I hate you," I whispered. "Good." His voice was rough. "Hate me. Be furious. But stay alive. Why does it matter so much?" "Because..." He stopped. Something crossed his face. Vulnerability, quickly hidden. "Because I made a promise. To my mother." "Yes. That's all I am to you? An obligation?" His hand slid from my wrists to my face, tilting my head back. "If you were just an obligation," he said quietly, "I wouldn't have spent the last 4 nights standing in your doorway, making sure you were sleeping. I wouldn't dream about you. I wouldn't have killed 3 men last week because they said your name." My breath caught. "What?" "You're not an obligation, Lily. You're everything I shouldn't want and the only thing I think about." Then he kissed me. Not gentle this time. Claiming, desperate, like he'd been holding back and couldn't anymore. His hands tangled in my hair, angling my head exactly where he wanted it, and I melted into him. This was dangerous. This was insane. This was inevitable. When we broke apart, I was pressed against the wall, his body caging mine. "I'm still angry," I whispered. "I know. I don't trust you. You shouldn't. But I don't want you to leave." His thumb traced my bottom lip. "Then I won't." He picked me up, and I wrapped my legs around his waist as he carried me to the bedroom. And for one night, I stopped caring about surveillance and danger and all the reasons this was wrong. For one night, I was just his. Chapter 6. I woke to an empty bed. Matteo's side was cold, like he'd left hours ago. But there was a note on the pillow, his handwriting sharp and precise. "Had to handle something. Stay inside. M." I shouldn't have felt disappointed. But I did. I showered, dressed in the expensive clothes he provided, made coffee in the gleaming kitchen. Tried to pretend last night hadn't changed everything. Failed. The morning stretched. No Matteo. No guards checking in. Just silence and the city below. Then, around noon, the door opened. But it wasn't Matteo. A woman walked in, late 30s, beautiful in a severe way, dressed in black. She studied me with cold assessment. "You're the girl. Who are you?" "Katia Volkov." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I believe my brother has been looking for you." Ice flooded my veins. "How did you get in here?" "Money buys many things, including security codes." She moved closer. "Matteo thinks he can protect you. He's wrong. He's on his way back." "No, he's not. He's currently dealing with a situation at the docks. Very urgent. Very distracting." Her smile widened. I made sure of it. My hand slid toward my phone. "Don't." She pulled a gun from her purse. Small, elegant, lethal. You're coming with me. Why? Because Matteo De Luca took something from my family. Now I'm taking something from him. The gun pressed against my ribs as she guided me toward the door. I thought about fighting, screaming, running. But she was calm, professional. This wasn't her first time. The elevator descended. The lobby was empty, impossibly empty, like it had been cleared. The SUV waiting outside was black, identical to Matteo's. She pushed me inside. And as we pulled away from the building, I saw it. Matteo's car, pulling up. Too late. Our eyes met through the window. The rage on his face was terrifying. But we were already moving. And I was gone. Chapter 7. The warehouse smelled like rust and fear. They tied me to a chair in the center of an empty room. Concrete floors, metal walls, no windows. Katia stood in front of me, gun still in hand. He'll come for you, she said. That's the point. Why me? I'm nobody. You're the thing he cares about. That makes you valuable. A phone buzzed. She answered, spoke rapid Russian, hung up. He's on his way. She checked her watch. 30 minutes. Then what? Then I kill you in front of him. Fair trade for my brother. My stomach lurched. I don't understand. Matteo killed Victor. Put a bullet in his head 6 months ago after your mother witnessed one of our deals. She leaned down, breath hot on my face. Did he tell you that part? The room spun. My mother's death was leverage that went wrong. We were going to use her to control Matteo. He found out. Came for her. Victor panicked, pushed her car off the road. Katia straightened. Then Matteo hunted my brother down and executed him. Everything clicked into place. The guilt. The surveillance. The obsessive protection. Matteo hadn't just failed to save my mother. He'd killed the man responsible. He never told you, did he? Katia smiled. Interesting. Footsteps echoed outside. Multiple sets. Gunfire erupted. Katia grabbed me, gun to my temple. Stay calm and you might live through this. The door exploded inward. Matteo stood in the doorway, gun raised, face spattered with blood. His eyes locked on mine. Then on the gun against my head. Let her go, Katia. You killed Victor. He killed an innocent woman. She was nobody. She was everything. His voice dropped, lethal. And you're going to release Lily, or I will kill every member of your family. You're outnumbered. I've never needed numbers. The standoff stretched. Then Katia's phone rang. She answered, her face draining of color. What did you do? She whispered. Matteo's smile was cold. I took your father, your uncle, your 3 cousins. They're sitting in a house outside the city with enough explosives to level a city block. He took a step forward. Release her, or they die. You're bluffing. Am I? He held up his phone. A live video feed showed exactly what he'd described. Katia's hand shook. This doesn't end here. Yes, Matteo said quietly. It does. She shoved me forward. I stumbled, and Matteo caught me, pulling me behind him in one smooth motion. Leave Boston, he said. Tonight. If I see you or any of your people again, that house explodes. Katia backed toward the exit. He's a monster, she told me. You'll see. Then she was gone. Matteo turned to me, hands framing my face, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? No, my voice broke. You killed him. Victor. You killed him for my mother. His hands stilled. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to see me as a killer. But you are. Yes. No apology. No justification. Just truth. I am. I should have been horrified. Should have run. Instead, I kissed him. Hard, desperate, grateful. When we broke apart, he looked stunned. Lily. Thank you, I whispered. For avenging her. For protecting me. For being a monster when I needed one. Something broke in his eyes. He pulled me against his chest, and I felt him shaking. I thought I lost you. You didn't. If they'd hurt you. They didn't. You came. His lips found my forehead. Always. I'll always come. Chapter 8. We didn't go back to the penthouse. Matteo drove us to a house outside the city. Stone and wood, isolated, surrounded by trees. Private. Safe. This is mine, he said as we walked inside. No one knows about it except my most trusted people. The house was beautiful. Warm. Lived in. How long do we stay? Until the Volkov family leaves Boston for good. 3 days, maybe 4. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed me one. We sat in front of the fireplace, flames casting shadows across his face. Tell me everything, I said. No more secrets. So he did. Told me about his family, generations of organized crime. His father's death when he was 19. Inheriting an empire he never wanted but learned to control. Told me about Viktor Volkov pushing into their territory. The deal gone wrong. My mother stumbling into the warehouse at exactly the wrong moment. She tried to run, he said quietly. Viktor's men chased her. She was terrified, driving too fast. Lost control on that curve. And you found out. I found Viktor 3 days later. Put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger. Did it help? The revenge? No. His eyes met mine. It just meant one more person was dead because of me. I took his hand. She would have wanted me safe. You gave her that. I gave her death. No. They did. You just made them pay. We sat in silence, fingers intertwined. What happens now? I asked. The Bratva will leave. They don't want a war they can't win. And us. He turned to face me fully. That depends on you. On me. Whether you can accept what I am. What my life is. His thumb traced circles on my palm. I can't change it, Lily. Can't walk away from the family. But I can keep you separate from the worst of it. I don't want to be separate. I want to be with you. Even knowing I'm a killer. Even knowing you're a killer who protects the people he loves. His breath caught on that word. Loves. I do, he said quietly. Love you. I've tried not to. Tried to keep this professional, keep you safe from a distance. But I can't. Then don't. I moved into his lap, straddling him, hands framing his face. I choose this. I choose you. All of you. He kissed me like I was oxygen. And that night, in front of the fire, we stopped pretending this was anything but inevitable. Chapter 9. 4 days later, we returned to the city. The Bratva was gone, scattered, dismantled. Katia had fled to Russia, taking what remained of her family's organization with her. Matteo's people confirmed it was over. But things had changed. I couldn't go back to my old life. The apartment, the diner, the careful invisibility I'd cultivated. That girl was gone. Move in with me, Matteo said over breakfast in the penthouse. Officially. That's fast. We've been sleeping in the same bed for a week. Seems redundant to pretend otherwise. I smiled. Romantic. I'm not romantic. I'm practical. But his eyes were warm. Besides, I need you close. Can't protect you if you're across the city. Is that all? No. He set down his coffee. I also wake up calmer when you're there. Sleep better. Feel like slightly less of a monster when you look at me like I'm human. My heart squeezed. Okay. Okay. I'll move in. His smile was rare, genuine, beautiful. We spent the day arranging things. Matteo had movers collect my belongings, what little there was. Had the penthouse adjusted to include my presence. Books on the shelves. My photos on the walls. My coffee in the kitchen. Making space for me in his carefully controlled world. That evening, We visited my mother's grave together. It had become our routine. Wednesday evenings, fresh flowers, shared silence. I set down white roses. Matteo placed lilies beside them. I think she'd like you, I said. She'd hate what I am. She'd love that you protect me. I took his hand. That you avenged her. You think so? I know so. We stood there as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Marry me. I turned to him, certain I'd misheard. But he was already pulling a ring from his pocket. Simple band, single diamond, understated and perfect. Matteo. I know it's fast. I know I'm not what you should want. But I love you. And I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you're safe, happy, and never alone. He took my hand. Lily Chen, will you marry me? I thought about everything that had brought us here. Grief and violence and obsessive protection. Surveillance and kidnapping and murder. It should have been wrong. But standing at my mother's grave with this dangerous man offering me forever, it felt exactly right. Yes. His smile broke across his face like sunrise. He slipped the ring on my finger, pulled me into a kiss that tasted like promise. When we broke apart, I could have sworn I felt my mother's approval in the wind. Like she'd known all along. Like she'd sent him to find me. Chapter 10. The wedding was small. Matteo's family filled one side of the church, aunts and uncles and cousins who treated violence like business. My side was empty except for two friends from the diner, who looked both excited and terrified. I wore white. Simple dress, nothing extravagant. Matteo wore black, as always. When the priest asked if I took this man, I looked into those dark eyes that had watched over me, protected me, killed for me. I do. His vows were short. I promised to keep you safe. To put you first. To be the monster that stands between you and anything that tries to hurt you. Not romantic. But true. We sealed it with a kiss that felt like claiming. The reception was at one of his restaurants, closed to the public, filled with his people. They welcomed me like I'd always belonged. Late in the evening, Matteo pulled me onto the balcony. The city spread below, glittering and dangerous. Any regrets? He asked. Not one. Even knowing what I am. Because of what you are. I turned to face him. You're not a good man, Matteo. But you're my man. And that's all that matters. He kissed my forehead, my nose, my lips. I'll spend the rest of my life earning this. Earning you. You already have. We stayed there until late, wrapped in each other, looking out at the city he controlled. And I realized something. I'd come to my mother's grave looking for closure. Instead, I'd found salvation. Not in goodness or light or redemption. But in a man who turned his darkness into protection. Who made obsession feel like safety. Who looked at me like I was the only thing in the world worth dying for. 3 months later, I stood at my mother's grave again. This time, I brought 2 bouquets. One for her. One for the small headstone beside hers, Viktor Volkov's grave, relocated here at Matteo's order. I wanted you to see he paid for what he did, I told my mother. That Matteo made sure of it. I felt Matteo's arms come around me from behind. Ready to go home, he murmured. Home, I repeated. The word felt new. Right. We walked back to the car together. And as I looked back at the graves one last time, I could have sworn I saw my mother's headstone catch the light. Like approval. Like peace. Like she'd always known this was how the story would end. Not with a prince. But with a monster who loved me enough to be gentle. And that was exactly what I needed. Chapter 11. 6 weeks after the wedding, I missed my period. I stared at the pregnancy test in the bathroom of the penthouse, hands shaking, watching the 2 pink lines appear. Pregnant. I was pregnant with Matteo De Luca's child. The bathroom door opened. Matteo walked in, stopped when he saw my face. What's wrong? I held up the test. His eyes went to the plastic stick, then to my face. For a moment, he was completely still. Then he crossed the room in 2 strides, pulled me against his chest. Are you okay? His voice was rough. Do you want this? I nodded against his shirt. I'm terrified. But yes. He pulled back, hands framing my face. I'm going to be a father. Yes. Something broke in his expression. Joy, pure and unguarded. We are having a baby. He kissed me, gentle and reverent. Our baby. Are you happy? Happy doesn't cover it. His hand moved to my still flat stomach. You're giving me a family, Lily. A real one. Something I never thought I deserved. Tears spilled down my cheeks. He wiped them away with his thumbs. I'm going to protect you both, he promised. Nothing will ever touch you. I swear it. The pregnancy was difficult. Morning sickness that lasted all day. Exhaustion that made me sleep 14 hours at a stretch. Anxiety that kept me up at night worrying about bringing a child into Matteo's world. But he was there through all of it. Held my hair back when I was sick. Cancelled meetings to stay home with me. Had his doctor on speed dial for every concern. You're hovering, I told him one evening, 5 months pregnant, as he adjusted my pillows for the 3rd time. I'm attentive. You're obsessive. That's not new. He settled beside me on the couch, hand resting on my swollen belly. I've been obsessive about you from the beginning. The baby kicked. Matteo's eyes widened. Was that? She's saying hello. She? I smiled. Didn't I tell you? It's a girl. He was quiet for a long moment, his hand still on my stomach, feeling our daughter move beneath his palm. A girl, he repeated softly. We are having a daughter. Are you disappointed? Disappointed? He looked at me like I was insane. I'm terrified. I don't know how to raise a girl. How to keep her safe without suffocating her. How to be the father she deserves. You'll figure it out. What if I mess this up? You won't. I took his hand. You're going to love her so much it scares you. And that's exactly what makes you the right father. He kissed me, slow and deep. I love you, he murmured against my lips. Both of you. At 7 months, we visited my mother's grave. It was harder now, my body heavy and awkward. Matteo helped me kneel in the grass, his arm steady around my waist. I placed flowers on the headstone, white roses, like always. Hi, Mom, I said softly. I have news. You're going to be a grandmother. The words caught in my throat. I wish you were here. Wish you could meet her. Wish you could tell me I'm not completely terrified of screwing this up. Matteo's hand squeezed my shoulder. Her name is Eleanor, I continued. After you. Eleanor Maria de Luca. Beside me, Matteo went completely still. You didn't tell me that, he said quietly. I was waiting for the right moment. I looked up at him. Eleanor for my mother. Maria for yours. Our daughter carries both of them. His eyes were wet. That's perfect, he whispered. They'd both love that. We stayed until the sun started to set, talking to my mother about the nursery we were preparing, the tiny clothes Matteo kept buying, how scared and excited we both were. As we walked back to the car, Matteo stopped. Thank you, he said. For what? For giving me this. A family. A future that isn't just violence and obligation. His hand rested on my belly. For making me believe I can be more than what I was. You already are more. Only because of you. The labor started 3 weeks early. I woke at 2 in the morning to wetness and cramping. Matteo was on the phone with the hospital before I'd fully processed what was happening. It's time, he said, already moving. We need to go now. The drive was a blur. Matteo holding my hand. The hospital staff rushing us into a private room. Pain that came in waves, stealing my breath. 15 hours. That's how long it took. 15 hours of Matteo refusing to leave my side. Holding my hand through contractions. Letting me scream at him. Whispering encouragement when I thought I couldn't do it anymore. You're the strongest person I know, he said, kissing my sweaty forehead. You can do this. And finally, I heard it. A cry. Small and indignant and perfect. She's here, the doctor said, placing a tiny, squirming bundle on my chest. Congratulations. I looked down at Eleanor Maria De Luca. Dark hair. Perfect little face. Eyes squeezed shut against the bright lights. She was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. "Hi, baby," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Hi, sweetheart. We've been waiting for you." Matteo stood beside us, one hand on my shoulder, the other gently touching Eleanor's tiny fingers. His face was unguarded, vulnerable, full of so much love it hurt to look at. "She's perfect," he said, voice breaking. "Lily, she's perfect." Eleanor wrapped her tiny hand around his finger, and I watched my dangerous, powerful, lethal husband completely fall apart. He cried. Silently, tears running down his face as he stared at our daughter like she was a miracle he didn't deserve. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for her. For this. For everything." I pulled him down into a kiss. "We did this together." "No." He shook his head. "You did this. You're incredible." The next few days were a blur of feeding, changing, and sleeping in 20-minute increments. Matteo was hands-on in a way I hadn't expected. Got up for night feedings. Changed diapers without complaint. Held Eleanor for hours while she slept on his chest. "You're a natural," I told him one night, watching him rock our daughter. "I'm terrified I'm going to break her." "You won't. She's so small. She's tough. She's a De Luca." He smiled at that. When Eleanor was 2 weeks old, we took her to the cemetery. It was a clear autumn morning, leaves turning gold and red. Matteo carried Eleanor in her car seat while I brought flowers. We stood at my mother's grave together. "Hi, Mom," I said softly. "I want you to meet someone." Matteo lifted Eleanor from the car seat, held her gently against his chest. "This is Eleanor," I continued. "Your granddaughter. She has your name. Your strength." My voice broke. "I wish you could hold her." The wind rustled through the oak trees. Eleanor made a small sound, stretching in Matteo's arms. "She would have loved you," Matteo said quietly, speaking to my mother's headstone. "Would have spoiled you rotten. Taught you how to make her special soup." He paused. "I promise I'll tell you about her. About both your grandmothers. You'll know where you come from." We stood there for a long time. 3 generations connected by love and loss. As we turned to leave, I noticed fresh flowers on the grave beside my mother's, Matteo's mother, Maria, who had moved here months ago so they could rest near each other. "Did you?" "Rosa came by yesterday," Matteo said. "She wanted them to have flowers when we brought Eleanor." My heart squeezed. This family I'd married into, violent, dangerous, criminal, they were also this. Thoughtful, loving, present. We drove home through the autumn afternoon. Eleanor slept in her car seat. Matteo kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror like he couldn't believe she was real. "What are you thinking?" I asked. "That I spent 35 years being one thing. Then you walked into my life, and I became something else. What are you now?" He reached over, took my hand. "A husband. A father. A man with something to lose." His fingers tightened. "And I'd burn down the entire world to keep you both safe." "I know you would." "Does that scare you?" I looked back at our daughter, sleeping peacefully. "No," I said honestly. "It makes me feel safe." Epilogue. 3 years later. Eleanor was chasing butterflies in the cemetery. 3 years old, all dark curls and fearless energy, running between headstones with the absolute certainty of a child who'd never known anything but safety. "Careful, Principessa," Matteo called after her. "Stay where I can see you." She giggled, darting behind an oak tree. I smiled, rubbing my swollen belly. 7 months pregnant with our second child, a boy this time. "She's going to be a handful," I said. "She already is." But Matteo's voice was full of pride. "Gets it from her mother." "Excuse me." He pulled me against his side, careful of my belly. "Stubborn. Fearless. Refuses to listen to reason." "I listen to reason." "You married me. That proves otherwise." I laughed. Eleanor ran back to us, holding a dandelion. For Grandma Eleanor. She placed it carefully on my mother's grave, then ran to Maria's headstone and placed another. And Grandma Maria. Beautiful, baby, I told her. They love them. She beamed, then noticed my belly. When's baby coming? 2 more months. That's forever. She pressed her ear against my stomach. Hi, brother. Hurry up. Matteo scooped her up, making her shriek with laughter. Patience, little one. Good things take time. As they played, I knelt at my mother's grave. The headstone was weathered now, 3 years of seasons. But we kept it clean. Kept fresh flowers here every week. Hi, Mom, I said softly. Sorry it's been a few weeks. Eleanor had a cold, and I've been exhausted with the pregnancy. I adjusted the flowers. Things are good. Really good. Matteo's been transitioning the business, more legitimate operations, less violence. He wants our kids to have a different life than he did. Eleanor's laughter rang out behind me. She's so much like you. Stubborn, kind, sees the best in people. I smiled. She asks about you all the time. We show her pictures. Tell her stories. She knows she's loved by a grandmother she never met. The wind picked up, warm and gentle. I forgave you, you know, for cleaning at Matteo's house that night. For being in the wrong place. My voice cracked. I used to be angry that you were there. Now I understand. You were just trying to provide for me, like you always did. I felt Matteo's presence before he spoke, his hand settling on my shoulder. You okay? I nodded, standing with his help. Eleanor was making flower chains in the grass, humming to herself. I was just telling Mom about the baby. What did she say? I smiled. That she's proud of us. That she would have loved seeing you with Eleanor. That she forgives us both. Matteo pulled me close, his arms around me and our unborn son. I spent so long drowning in guilt, he said quietly. Thinking I destroyed your life by failing to save her. But standing here, watching our daughter play, feeling our son kick. She brought us together, I finished. In the strangest, most painful way. But she brought us together. You really believe that? I do. I looked up at him. Everything that happened, all the pain, all the fear, it led us here. And I wouldn't change it. He kissed my forehead. Eleanor ran over, tugging on Matteo's hand. Daddy, look. I made a crown. She held up a chain of dandelions and daisies. Matteo crouched down, letting her place it on his head. Beautiful, Principessa. Do I look like a king? You look silly. She giggled. Well, if I'm silly, you're stuck with me. He scooped her up, tickling her until she squealed. I watched them together, my lethal, dangerous husband, completely undone by a 3-year-old with his eyes and my stubborn streak. This was the redemption neither of us expected. Not in forgiveness or absolution, but in building something beautiful from the broken pieces. As we walked back to the car, Eleanor fell asleep on Matteo's shoulder. He carried her with one arm, his other hand finding mine. What are you thinking? He asked. That I came to a cemetery looking for my mother, and found a family instead. Best family you could ask for. He squeezed my hand. We even come with armed security. I laughed. Very exclusive. Only the best for you. We drove home as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Eleanor slept peacefully. Our son kicked against my ribs. Matteo drove with one hand on the wheel, one on my knee. And I realized something. This was what my mother wanted when she made Matteo promise to keep me safe. Not just protection from danger. But this. A love that started in grief and became something unbreakable. A family forged in darkness but filled with light. A life worth living, worth fighting for, worth everything. 6 months later, I stood at my mother's grave again. This time with 2 children. Eleanor held her baby brother, Lorenzo, carefully in her lap while Matteo hovered nervously nearby. Gentle, sweetheart, I reminded her. I know, Mama. I'm being careful. I placed flowers on both graves, my mother's and Maria's. "Hi, Mom. I want you to meet Lorenzo." I knelt in the grass. "He has Matteo's eyes. Your smile. He's perfect." Lorenzo yawned, tiny fist stretching. Eleanor kissed his forehead. "Grandmas would love him." "They would," I agreed. Matteo sat beside me, arm around my shoulders. "You know what I realized," he said quietly. "What?" "I spent 6 months coming here alone, talking to my mother's grave, drowning in guilt. Then you appeared. And everything changed." "Fate?" "Your mother." He nodded toward the headstone. "I think she sent you. That morning in the rain. She wanted us to find each other." "You believe that?" "I have to. Otherwise, the pain doesn't make sense." He pulled me closer. "But this, us, our children, this family, this makes sense. This feels like exactly where we were always supposed to end up." Eleanor looked up. "Daddy, can we go get ice cream?" "May we?" I corrected automatically. "May we get ice cream?" Matteo laughed. "Yes. But you have to share with your brother when he's older." "Deal." As we walked back to the car, I looked back one last time. The grave sat peaceful under the oak trees. 2 women I'd never seen together, connected forever by the family they'd created. I whispered a final thank you. And then I turned toward the life they'd given me. The end.